The Timeline is a Blue Wire podcast.
To the Timeline, of Phoenix Suns podcast. We're coming to you immediately after the Suns defeat the Golden State Warriors to make the NBA playoffs. My name is Mike, here with Sam. How you doing, Sam?
Never in doubt, baby. I am good. On to OKC we go, man. I'm feeling good.
I'm feeling good too. Like, it's hard to be mad about that game, even though weirdly it didn't feature Steph Curry or Devin Booker. I'm surprised they didn't play for this game.
Yeah, you know, it really was a shame that the two best players on paper were just not available tonight. You know, injuries took both of them out, but it happens.
111-96, the Suns beat the Warriors by 15 points in a game where really, they kind of controlled the game from the tip. There was one little surge by the Golden State Warriors. I believe it was in the third quarter. But the Suns just kind of... No, it was the second quarter. The Suns just kind of kept it going.
It was a 5-point game at halftime. I did not have confidence in the Suns going into the second half. When I say never in doubt, obviously I'm being sarcastic. But they controlled it. They were able to, and they did it principally because of that guy, Jaylen Green.
That's right.
That is just the guy to talk about tonight. Now, we'll talk about everyone, but like Jaylen Green to have 35 points the other night against Portland, followed by 36 here. I tweeted this out, but it is such a shame that these games don't technically count towards your playoff stats because they're not technically playoff games. They exist in this vacuum where everyone knows that Jaylen Green scored 36 points on 70% shooting tonight, but those stats don't go anywhere, which sucks because there's this whole narrative about, you know, the trouble that Jaylen had in the first round series, the one series that Houston played last year. And I want these stats to count towards that, you know, towards reversing that narrative potentially. But he was just absolutely incredible tonight. And in a game where a lot of players were struggling for the Suns offensively, Devin Booker especially, Jaylen was the guy who kind of bailed us out all night long.
Yeah, I mean, we'll talk about Jordan Goodwin too, but Jordan Goodwin was awesome as well. But Jaylen Green, you're right that it doesn't count like StatMuse Twitter or whatever, like when they search, they Google Jaylen Green playoff stats and click the first link, it's not going to include these games. But for people who are watching, the perception is going to change for him. He was 23 last year in those playoff games. Like, there has to be some, at least some acknowledgement that he's going to be getting better as he gets older. And look, this is not to guarantee that he's going to play great against the Oklahoma City Thunder. We're going to have a separate podcast talking about that series, hopefully up soon. I guess it starts really soon, so I'm not sure when we're going to have an opportunity.
Guess we have to record that tomorrow. We got to figure that out.
Yeah. But either way, perception will change for him, at least based on these games. It does matter what happens next. And you know, in some ways, the same way in an opposite context can be said about Devin Booker as well. Like, if Booker comes out and scores better in those games, that'll change the perception of him. We'll talk about his game too, because I do think it was kind of an interesting game from Devin Booker. But Jaylen Green, scoring-wise, absolutely set the tone for this team. And his consistency throughout the game, I think, is what was really important. He started the game scoring well, and he never really played poorly. Throughout the rest of the game, he continued to play well. Ended the game with 36 points, had 8 threes, 4 assists, only 2 turnovers. Also had 2 steals and 3 blocks.
2 steals and 3 blocks. I really wanted to stress, like, as the game went on, it started with the shot making for him, but then as his confidence built, still at a point in the game in the second half where the Suns were, you know, consistently up by like 8, 9, 10 points, but it was a game, you know, the entire time. It was a game. And Jaylen, as his confidence built, he made some great hustle plays too in the second half and, you know, got his hands on deflections and turned the Warriors over. I think the Warriors had a ton. They finished with 20 turnovers in this game, right? So,
yeah.
But yeah, Jaylen, he was right in the center of that too, which was awesome.
Really important, I think, for him to play well on and off the ball. He had some really good plays on the ball, but I just thought his movement and his catch and shoot shooting in this game were really important to the game as well, because although Devin Booker only shot 12 times, had 20 points, 8 assists, I do think that his minutes were obviously incredibly important for this team. He was plus 25 in his minutes overall, Devin Booker, and in the few minutes he sat, 6 minutes total in this game, I believe the Warriors went on a 10-2 run and outscored the Suns by 8 in those minutes, and like he just couldn't sit, played the entire second half until they took him out at the end of the game.
Few of those minutes,
when he was ejected, by the way, I should say they didn't take him out. He was ejected. That's part of this game now, I guess.
Very, very silly ending to the game between Devin Booker and Draymond Green that I almost don't think deserves any discussion because it was just stupid. But, there obviously is the aspect of like, Booker, his gravity exists and, they double teamed him and he made the right reads and whatever. In the 6 minutes that he sat, weirdly, I think most of those minutes were also without Jaylen Green. So it was this really weird time actually where Colin Gillespie, who had another game where he didn't do anything, and Dillon Brooks were supposed to lead the Suns' offense. Grayson Allen was technically listed as available tonight, but he didn't play, which was interesting too. When Book and Green both sat at the beginning of the second quarter, that was a very strange choice, in my opinion, from Jordan Knott, and they really struggled.
They really did. But, I especially... Because Jaylen Green was so good, that was obviously really important. It was especially important for him to be good offensively. Now, he was good defensively as well because Dillon Brooks was awful offensively in this game. This was kind of the worst of the worst for Dillon Brooks offensively. Now, on the other side of that, I do want to give Dillon Brooks some credit because I do think his defense was excellent in this game. Now, it's not going to show up in stocks. He didn't have any steals or blocks. But I think his switching and his ability to play so high and force players up so high on those switches and his ability to be sort of a stronger guy on the court because the Suns don't have a lot of them was really important for the minutes that he played defensively. But my God, did he make a lot of incorrect decisions offensively throughout this game, whether it was some ill-advised shots that came throughout this game or even worse, often ill-advised passes. Shots at least go up near the rim. You have the opportunity to set your defense, but the passes, the 5 turnovers, I thought were really poor in this game.
It's tough with that because, so often with Dillon Brooks, it's like we're begging him to pass. So I never want to get down on Dillon Brooks for choosing to pass the ball, right? He needs to do that. That's part of being a basketball
100%.
player at the highest level. You need to be able to pass. But I mean, he just needs to work on his precision. Granted, like we'll talk about this in a second. The Suns were again so small all the time, and so sometimes it was like Dillon Brooks is passing into Jordan Goodwin in the paint, and like maybe he's used to that just being a big, but it's Jordan Goodwin and the ball sails out of bounds. So there was a little bit of that, but yeah, the shot selection with Dillon is always going to be an issue. I just generally still feel that I understand if they want to go with the starting lineup of him with Jaylen Green and Devin Booker, then so be it. That's 3 of their 5 best players, but there is a clunkiness when all 3 of them are together, and I just still never really feel like Dillon should be featured offensively more than those other 2 guys when he's on the court with them at the same time. It just doesn't work. And it's especially strange when you have lineups that are so small and yet don't, like on paper should have the speed advantage, but they don't have the pace advantage. And a lot of that is just because of the way Dillon Brooks plays basketball.
It should be said why he shot so much early on. Now, there was some times where the Suns tried the first and second option and then just sort of gave it to Dillon Brooks with 8 seconds left on the shot clock and said, okay, try to create a shot here. That did happen. Strategically, they had a plan in this game, and it was pretty clear what their plan was offensively. And the plan was to isolate Steph Curry as much as possible in the first half and then throughout the game and try to attack him offensively. And I think with the Suns, what's nice is their ability to set screens, their ability to move around, and the fact that they have 3 guys that could at least attempt to attack that mismatch was an advantage in this game and probably something we should have talked about in our preview. Just going at Steph Curry, whether it be Dillon Brooks in the post early in the game to try to battle him a little bit and wear him out, or Devin Booker or Jaylen Green just attacking off dribble. More often than not, they were trying not to put Steph Curry on Devin Booker, which is why it ended up being the other guys that were attacking. There was a couple times I think Devin Booker could have attacked a little bit more aggressively against him, but was moving the ball a lot. And ultimately in this game, hitting more threes than them was going to be important for the overall game. I don't even know if they finished with more. 18. Yeah, they did. Significantly more. 7 more total. And then in the second
finished
half...
with 7 more what? Sorry? The
threes.
Threes,
yeah.
Yeah.
And then in the second half, they were doing the same thing, but this time with Al Horford. Just trying to isolate Al Horford sort of on an island and then attack Al Horford. And that's, I think, where Devin Booker did a little bit better at attacking and had a couple of shots to close out in the fourth quarter. Not to close out, but like at important moments in the fourth quarter that helped the Suns finish this game off. But they were really, I think, disciplined in that game plan in attacking in a way maybe you could have moved away from. And I'm not sure if that's what wore Steph Curry down, if that's why he played kind of poorly, or if there was something bothering Steph Curry physically, or if this is just the result of being older and playing 2 really important games in sort of one day off between them. Not sure, but whatever it was,
right.
It worked in the Suns' favor in this one.
I mean, it's probably a little bit of everything. You know, Steph has had plenty of games before. Like, the concept of targeting Steph defensively is not new. It certainly happened to him before, and then he still goes out there and drops 35 or 40 on you. So I'd like to believe that helped, and that certainly was part of the strategy for a reason, but he probably just had a bad game and is old. And, you know, definitely there's a lot of that too. We did talk about how Golden State should not be confident in their center rotation yesterday. And lo and behold, Kristaps Porzingis only played 15 minutes in this game and was really bad in his minutes and made a couple of threes, but other than that, just did not look comfortable on the court. We talked about how him and Steph literally have not developed any chemistry yet because they haven't really played any minutes together. And so then they had to lean on Al Horford, like you're talking about, and Al Horford is a very... not inconsistent, but just like has a lot of weaknesses at this point in his career, right? So
yeah.
he's even
the
older.
Only player on the team older than Steph Curry. Well, I don't know how old Draymond Green is, but older than both of them.
As well as there were pockets of this game where I did feel like the Suns were playing very well, but truth be told, Mike, and anyone else who's listening, you know, this was a weird Warriors team that gave us a lot of unforced errors that you could kind of just feel their surprising, you know, because I just think we still think of them as a dynasty in some ways, but like their lack of poise in this situation in a game like this kind of caught me off guard. And as well as the Suns played, like this was also just a game where the Warriors looked pretty shitty. And
especially the first half. I actually think the Warriors kind of looked a little bit more like themselves in the second half, but that first half, like the first quarter in particular, they probably didn't expect as much pressure from the Suns as they got, but they did make a lot of sort of unforced errors. The rest of the game, I thought they kind of locked in and were playing their style of basketball, and the Suns just outplayed them by hitting more difficult shots. If Steph was what he was against the Clippers, it would have been a little more difficult to beat them, but he wasn't. And, you know, if Jaylen Green was making less of the difficult shots that he made, then the Suns would have struggled. But you know, ultimately, these sort of one-game scenarios, anything could happen. And in this game, more shots were going in for the Suns. And I think in a lot of ways, this is why it's important for the Suns to have home court advantage in these games. It could have gone the exact opposite way had this game taken place in San Francisco. But the Suns earned that home court advantage with how they played in the regular season and then won the game in this game with a little help from the crowd. Even though, by the way, as I said, lots of Warriors fans in the house. You could hear them in the broadcast the first time Steph made a three. If you care about coffee and how it's made, check out Alchemy Roast. They roast in small batches and source their beans responsibly, focusing on flavor instead of mass production. The result is coffee that's balanced, well-developed, and easy to drink, whether you brew at home every day or just want something better than grocery store coffee. You can order online at alchemyroaster.com, and if you use the promo code TIMELINE at checkout, you'll get 10% off your order. Go now to alchemyroaster.com, my favorite coffee, and use the promo code TIMELINE at checkout. Get 10% off
Support a local Phoenix business and get the best coffee you can buy.
Big thanks to our sponsor, BetterHelp, for partnering with us for this important conversation about mental health.
This is Steve Smith here, former NFL wide receiver and host of the 89 show on YouTube. So having a counselor and working with BetterHelp, that gives you an opportunity to really start to unpack. But people don't understand, when you unpack things, you also open up a box that you're not always sure what's inside. So I think that's why seeing a professional is extremely important. If you need someone to open up to, visit BetterHelp. That's betterhelp.com/89 to get started.
We've all been there. You're away for the weekend, the big game is on, and you realize you're restricted from watching. Or maybe you're trying to check the latest lines on your betting app, but your local network is blocking the site. These are the ultimate unforced errors. You can prevent this from happening to you with IPVanish. IPVanish is the powerhouse VPN designed to keep you in the game no matter where you are. IPVanish helps you stay connected to your favorite team and streaming services while you travel. But it's not just about watching the game. For the bettors out there, IPVanish provides an extra layer of security and privacy that helps you access your account safely on public Wi-Fi. Plus, IPVanish is lightning fast, so you won't have to worry about lag during those crucial live betting moments. Right now, get a massive discount at IPVanish.com. That's IPVanish.com to get started today. Secure your play and go to IPVanish.com.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever think about switching insurance companies to see if you could save some cash? Progressive makes it easy. Just drop in some details about yourself and see if you're eligible to save money when you bundle your home and auto policies. The process only takes minutes, and it could mean hundreds more in your pocket. Visit Progressive.com after this episode to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states.
You know what's amazing?
Yeah, go ahead.
You want to talk about Jordan Goodwin too. So I just realized we didn't record a Patreon episode this week because of the weird schedule. So you know what that means?
It's him. No, it's him.
It means that we never...
I know. We're going to have to figure out how to do that.
So we need to... I think we should just do it right now.
It's him.
It's him officially.
There's a lot of people confused.
Jordan Goodwin is him, is what we're saying. Jordan Goodwin had an exceptional game. Again, what were his stats?
An exceptional 2 games, but he was especially good in this one.
Oh my God, he had 6 steals in this game? He had 19 points,
9
points. Rebounds.
He had 1 point less than Devin Booker.
19 points, 9 rebounds, 6 steals, 4 offensive rebounds, plus 17. When we say he's him, here's the context.
He's the third best player on the Suns in this game, but yes, we can explain it a little bit.
Jordan Goodwin was officially voted by the fans the Dan Marley Hustle Player of the Year, like a week and a half ago or something.
Last home game of the regular season is when they announced it.
The last home game of the regular season. Now, at the time we said, as people know, anyone who's a patron knows, we hand out our own Dan Marley Hustle Player of the Year of the Week of the Year award every week on the extra episodes. And we decided to wait for the end of the regular season to make our final determination on who the award is, because we don't necessarily have to agree with who the fans vote for. We just go by the number of points on our leaderboard. If you're not a patron, you haven't been following the leaderboard throughout the season, that's fine.
Unfortunately, this requires even more explanation, because the leaderboard is determined by whoever we think hustles the most in that week gets 3 points, and then the second place gets 2 points, and the third place gets 1 point. And we kept track of that all year. And before the final week of the season, Colin Gillespie was in first place. Behind him by only 2 points was Jordan Goodwin. The only way Jordan Goodwin could win the season is if he scored 3 points, which means got number 1, and Colin Gillespie was off the leaderboard entirely.
So in order to
really
win,
played the last 2 games of the season, but we have to include the play-in games. We just have to.
We have to include the play-in games. Yes.
They're too important.
So I think we need to make the final week selection right now, and in order to but here's the problem.
It's easy
is it
for me, by the way.
Why is it easy?
the hustle player, if we're including the playing games, I can tell you the top 3 that I'm going to say.
So not only, to be clear to everyone who's not following, not only does Jordan Goodwin need to get 3 points here, but we need to choose 2 other players who are not Colin Gillespie in order to enforce a Jordan Goodwin win on the season in the leaderboard, so he can officially be the Timeline's Dan Marley Hustle Player of the Year of the Week of the Year.
Yes.
And avoid Colin Gillespie being a back-to-back repeat winner. Is that cheating? Are we cheating?
No, Colin Gillespie doesn't deserve to be on the leaderboard. He played really well the entire season, did not have a good end of the season, and did not play well in either of these games. So it is what it is. He's not going to be on the leaderboard. Number 1, easy for me this week, if we're including all the games in the last 5 games or whatever. Jordan Goodwin with a bullet. He's by far number 1. Number 2 for me, you might not love it. I'm going to go with Royce O'Neal. He had 6 steals in there. 4 steals in the last game.
I can see it.
Number 3, you might be surprised by this one. I think it's Haywood Highsmith.
Just for 10 minutes.
He was really good in this game and really important in the minutes he played. Because the rest of the bench, I did not have any faith in the rest of the bench once this game started getting a little too close. And they put Haywood Highsmith in at center.
They did. This feels like some weird backhanded political, 26-hour filibuster on the Senate floor in order to give the trophy to a different person. But whatever. If that's what it takes to let Jordan Goodwin win this award, then so be it. I'm locking it in. I'm going to post later. I think I'm going to make a chart of how this leaderboard has evolved, how the point totals have evolved throughout the season, because it's going to look really funny with the comeback that Jordan Goodwin makes in the last 20 games of the season. So I'll make sure I post that somewhere.
Congratulations to this year's winner of the Timeline's Dan Marley Hustle Player of the Year of the Week. Of the year, Jordan Goodwin, the right player won. I don't care how he got there. Jordan Goodwin is he embodies everything about the Dan Marley Award and everything about our award, and he deserves this. Now, we're going to do a rules commission for those who are not Patreon members. We change the rules of how this works for our Patreon podcast every year. We're going to do a rules commission once the season is over. I think we need to have a conversation about if the playoffs should count, because it's our award. It can be whatever we want it to be.
I don't think the playoffs should count.
I think they should count.
But I think our patrons in the Discord
double.
Our patrons in the Discord can overrule us by a 2/3 majority.
We're going to have a rules commission, and we have veto power. Ultimately, we're going to have veto power, so we're going to decide ultimately what it is. But I think we need to give the patrons a chance to decide how it works. Either way, moving on from that, we'll be back. I don't know when we're going to have a Patreon podcast because the playoffs are going to last as long as they last, and we're going to have to cover every part of that. So I'm glad we covered that. 19 points, 7 for 11 in this game. Jordan Goodwin hit huge shots, and from tip was the best defensive player on the floor for, dare I say, either team. Mm-hmm. He was just so good defensively, created havoc everywhere he was. And this is a game that featured Dillon Brooks and Draymond Green. And I think Jordan Goodwin was the best. It's one of those things, right? This is why postseason is so important. And ideally, you make the postseason before you pay free agents. You know what I mean?
I was just about to ask you if this is the most Bill way that I could think to phrase the question. Has Jordan Goodwin earned as much money in the last month as Colin Gillespie has lost?
And not just Colin Gillespie. In some ways, I don't know. Mark Williams, this is a man. Because look, we didn't even talk about it. Mark Williams didn't play this game, and I hate to say it, blessing in disguise, I think. They started really well with Oso Ighodaro.
I don't know. I wouldn't necessarily say that.
I think the fact that the Suns could play small against this team is one of the reasons they actually had the opportunity to win. The fact that they were kind of forced to in a way, I think actually benefited them. Because watching the Warriors twist themselves into knots to try to find ways to play through Al Horford in the deep post, that's exactly what you want out of them. That's the guy you kind of want to have the ball. Give it to the oldest man on the floor, trying to back into guys. Yeah,
and in
fine.
the meantime, the Suns were able to, have guys like Haywood Highsmith and Royce O'Neal on the floor in power forward and center positions, constantly have 5 shooters on the floor. If Devin Booker gets trapped, they get to move the ball with a certain amount of pace and still have guys who are confident in those positions. They shot way more threes than the Warriors, which the Warriors like need to make threes in order to win games because they don't have an inside presence. We talked about that. Without Jimmy Butler, they don't have, that guy who's capable of getting to the rim. And yet they made 11 threes tonight. Right? Like they needed to hit 20 threes if they wanted to win this game, and they just didn't. And the Suns took more threes than them and made more threes than them, which is huge. So yeah, I like going small made sense here. I still think it was funny though that, Steve Kerr, I think, opened up the second quarter. At one point in the second quarter, he had Al Horford and Porzingis on the floor at the same time, being like, I'm going to challenge you guys with size. I'm going to force you. Almost. It was like, he's like, I'm going to force you to play Kaman Malawach with Steph Curry on the floor, right? Like, because we were willing to put Malawach out there for a few minutes at the end of the first quarter without Steph on the floor. But it was almost like Kerr was trying to bait us into it. And Jordan Ott was just like, nope, I'm going to go even smaller, which is absolutely hilarious and will get you crushed against an actual good team, I think. But it worked against this Warriors team. This Warriors team just did not have the personnel to punish a super small lineup from the Suns.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they just if their big guys were a little younger and had a little fresher legs, maybe they could have done it. But in this game, no, it was not something that benefited them. I did think Haywood Highsmith being available and actually playing this game was really good. Part of me was like, he should have probably played against the Portland Trailblazers as well. And even though in that first half stretch, the minutes with Ryan Dunn and Kaman Malawach were not bad. They were not great either. Like you said, they benefited from not being on the court at the same time as the best Warriors players. And when it got down the stretch and you really needed someone to trust, the fact that this man, Haywood Highsmith, has only been on the team for a few weeks, a month and a half maybe, it's impressive. That he was able to step into this game and play as well as he did, which was 10 minutes. And look, he was 0 for 3. He couldn't hit his threes. He just shot 3 open threes, but had 2 steals in that time and was +8. And, those 2 steals were very important for momentum of this game and for just throwing them off of what they were trying to do. The fact that Colin Gillespie couldn't do much, still a bit of a struggle for the Suns. They probably saved a lot of money if they want to re-sign him and have a better idea of what he could look like going forward. He can still improve. He can still play better next year. They don't have to play him like he's a star or pay him like he's a star now. That's for sure. Like I said about Jordan Goodwin, just understanding the value and what he brought to this team, there's just no way the Suns can afford to let him go. He's got to be on the team next year. He's a free agent too. We just need him on the team next year.
As of now, right? Like as we talk about how you pay these guys and keep them, but anything could happen in the next 4 to 7 games against the Thunder. But right now, it just feels like Jordan Goodwin is much more of a playoff contributor than Colin Gillespie, and it'll be interesting to think about how that will reflect in their future salaries, right? Previously, we were talking about at certain points in the regular season that the maximum amount that the Suns could offer Gillespie with his early bird rights was like, I want to say 13 to 14-ish million per year. It's like a little bit more than a mid-level contract. And at the time, I was like, if you can get away with paying Colin Gillespie 3 years, $14 million a year, that's a steal. Just like lock it in. But I think he's cheaper than that now. I just, who knows? If he comes out and scores 100 points in the next 4 games against the Thunder, then maybe that changes.
A lot of money, right? Yeah,
exactly. But right now, he's a good player. I really hope he stays with the Suns. I love watching him play. He's been absolutely essential to our success. But he's probably not a $14 million a year player if you're talking about not really being able to play him in the playoffs because he's not doing anything.
Jordan Ott said that Mark Williams' foot flared up at the end of the Portland game and was one of the reasons that he didn't play in that fourth quarter. I'm not sure he'll be back in the OKC Thunder series. We'll see. I'm guessing we're going to get an update on that. And I think the fact that we got a maybe possibly fake Grayson Allen's available tweet before this game. I think he's the only player who was available that didn't play a single second in this game, not even at the very, very end. means that I don't know that we're going to know for sure until the game actually tips off whether or not Mark Williams will play. We'll see on that one. But the other thing I will say is like Devin Booker too. I actually think Devin Booker ended up being pretty good in this game, but the fact that he cannot seem to score, ended up 5 for 12, which is not as inefficient, but 0 for 4 from 3, could not make a 3, is still doing a good job of getting to the free throw line and is still doing a good job of creating shots for other guys with 8 assists. But the fact that he can't seem to score the way that we expect him to, even the way that he was, like I know people are sort of saying this is what he was all season. No. I mean, in March and April, he was hitting a lot of shots. And yes, a lot of it was against poor teams. So I think that is something that needs to be factored in here. It's just a little concerning. We're going to do a full OKC Thunder preview at some point. Maybe a short one because we don't have a lot of time to get it out before you guys have a chance to start watching the games. But I'm concerned, I guess is my point. I'm just concerned. 42 minutes and only 20 points for Booker is weird.
We're going to keep oscillating back and forth on Book with the extremes a little bit, I think. Because, he was so good post All-Star break and like his 3-point percentage skyrocketed again. And then the play-in starts and, there goes his pull-up shot. He doesn't have it anymore. So it's so much with Book just depends on that difficult shot-making ability that when it leaves, we talk about it all the time, but like he's not really capable of just getting downhill and like forcing the offense to open up in that way. So a lot of the gravity has to come from the shot making, and it's just difficult if the shot making's not there. He was making proper decisions and, continuing to trust teammates and, assisting guys without turning the ball over, and all that is great. But like at the end of the day, we can just call it. The Suns won this game because Jaylen Green bailed Devin Booker out. And if Jaylen Green didn't have the game he had, who knows? How we'd be talking. We'd be talking about this, and the fan base would be talking about these last two games in a very particular way as it relates to Book.
I think they probably still will. But in general, I think you're right, because that would be an incredibly frustrating way to end. He's got opportunities to play better against the OKC Thunder. And we'll see what happens there. Ultimately, the playoff games are even more important. But, quick thoughts on OKC?
Quick thoughts on the Thunder?
Yeah.
I'm going to keep it a buck with you guys, okay? Mm-hmm. I'm going to have fun going into this series with no expectations. I can't remember as a Suns fan. I only speak as a Suns fan, right? Mm-hmm. In my history of watching the Suns, which is 22 years now, I can't remember a series where I've gone in with this little faith in their actual ability to win the series, right? Because in the history of the Suns, they're not usually an 8th seed. They're usually a top 4 seed when we talk about them being a playoff team. Or they're an underdog, but this is going to be the most daunting playoff series for the Suns in a very long time. I can't even remember a potential comparison historically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I think they might get slaughtered, but we'll do the research and we'll talk about it tomorrow. And, hopefully we have a fun time.
I mean, my first thought was, do we have to record after every game?
Yeah. I mean, we'll give it a shot, but shit, it's going to be hard. Like, I think the Thunder are equipped in a way that they could slaughter anyone. Yeah. But the thing that's difficult about talking about this series is they both have better top-end talent than we do and also have better depth than we do, if we're being entirely honest. Mm-hmm. So,
and in the playoffs where they're not going to call fouls, their defense is cranked up to another level. It's just
just off the top of my head, and I'm sure I'll think of something by tomorrow, I don't know if the Suns have a single advantage over the Thunder. Nothing comes to my head
it's the 8th seed. They're the 8th seed.
Exactly.
This is what
nothing
it's like
comes
to be an 8th seed.
Nothing comes to my head being like, we are better than them at this. I can't think of anything. So that's not a great place to be in. But
happy to be here. We're the happy to be here team. Sometimes you got to be that team. This is the season where we get to be the happy to be here team. So it is what it is. But yeah, we'll be back probably tomorrow, I guess, to record a preview of that series. And yeah, we'll cover it as it goes. I'm still happy the Suns made the playoffs and are in the postseason. And yeah, congratulations to them. Anything else you got before we go?
Congratulations to Jaylen Green on a fantastic couple of games. Congratulations to Jordan Goodwin on a fantastic campaign in order to win the most prestigious award.
That's right.
The Timeline's Dan Marley Award.
That's right.
Shout out to you.
Thanks, everyone, for listening. Back soon.